Welcome, and welcome back, everybody, to the OK Grognard Network. Today is a Periodicals Friday, August 28th, 2026. Beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. We're going to look at TSR's The Strategic Review, Volume 1, Number 3. On this beautiful OK Grognard Network. What do we got here? Oop, no. That's me. I don't disappear like that. What do we got? Yeah, we got the periodicals. Friday thing. Strategic Review number 3. What's it look like anyway? Well, I'll tell you, it's 8 pages of glorious, wonderful stuff. Now, it says autumn 1975 on it. But looking at the chronological list here for TSR products and when they were released, they talk about it being July for Strategic Review, Volume 1, Number 3. Autumn 75, it says. Okay. Yeah, it talks about how there's a review in another newsletter that is a little underwhelmed with D&D, which has been out about a year and a half. By July, by autumn, a little longer, right? Gary is considered full-time at TSR. Curious announcement of Empire of the Pale Throne, stating how it will be the ultimate in fantasy gaming. Wait a minute. New bunch of monsters. We'll get into all of this. But look at the classics. Shrieker, Naga. Love Nagas, especially the Guardian Naga. Piercer, Shambling Mound, Lurker Above. Those are crazy, crazy tough monsters. Now, he goes on to talk about his view of it, and we won't get too deep into that. But if we look at the Achaeum, if we look at this other site that details all sorts of early, it's Achaeum, all sorts of early TSR products, and it talks about the current values for collectors and such, but it also gives you a lot of information on when they were created. Spring 1975 to April 76, 7 issues of the Strategic Review. And spring, summer, fall, you would see 103, but they're getting 5 in this first volume. So maybe that, maybe the amount of materials they had to put into them had them moving a little faster. Look at their spring 75, summer 75. They say autumn 75, winter 76, spring 76, and we're still in volume 1, right? Number 5. And then we get into volume 2, and we get February 76 and April 76 before they move on to the dragon. And the covers get a little more cover-like and a little less newsletter-like in the first 4. And notice the classic warfare, the cover from the miniatures games rules that they create and sell is being used. The artwork from that is being used here. There's this fight in the skies. So they're starting to use it more and more as a house organ to discuss. We won't get into that Dragon magazine stuff down there. Anyway, that's enough to say that that's the state of it for those first 5 issues, first 7 issues, and we're on number 3. So we'll look at this, and then we'll go a little deeper into the various. No, Boy, I'm all over the place with the buttons today, aren't I? Anyway, let's bigify this, but it says Autumn 75 right on it, right? Single copy, still 50 cents. They talk about getting a subscription toward the end. Editorial. Donald Featherstone. We've talked about that Wargamers newsletter and the archives for that before. And at some point, we'll be digging into those to discuss some of the lead up to D&D and to TSR, but also to get some background. What sort of things were those people playing back then? Right on back to into 63, I think, Wargamers newsletter. So, it went back, and first Gen Con was 68, so 5 years before Gen Con even existed, and 11 years before D&D would become a thing, and, 10 years before TSR would become a thing. Well, Tactical Studies Rules Limited, is that the original name? So, there's a lot of stuff that was happening in wargaming before any of this was going on. So they're carving out a niche with the strategic review, military miniatures, games, sword and sorcery. These are the areas they try to cover with this. And this article discussing Naval War, Fletcher Pratt's Naval War game, and Donald Featherstone, of course, are renowned names in the world of wargaming. And maybe we'll do an episode on each of those individuals as a sort of a background one of these days. Obviously, it won't. Maybe it fits in periodicals because we're going to be talking about Wargamers newsletter. But there's also books and such, so I think we'll have to figure out a way of setting up a side episode, something that covers those guys individually and the breadth of what they gave to wargaming, and maybe end on a note of what their legacy was and how it influenced what then became TSR and Dungeons and Dragons, since that's sort of the main focus of this channel. And we'll get there eventually. But enough to say that we've got TSR news. As we have said before, things keep happening so fast around here that we cannot keep you properly informed despite our best efforts. Item TSR has formed a hobbies division, TSR Hobbies, advertised herein. It will soon have a catalog with no less than 150 different miniatures for fantasy gaming. That's an excellent thing because people were clamoring to find miniatures that were ready-made. Sure, they'd still have to paint them, and they were made of lead, and that was all dangerous. Just don't eat them. And but it was easier than taking a dinosaur and crafting wings for it, so you had a dragon, right? So, like some did. The picture on the 1E AD&D monster manual with that red dragon in the air is a sort of rendition of that original dragon that was created from dollar store figures with wings added to it. In any event, 150 different miniatures for fantasy gaming, as well as other goodies. Brian, that's Brian Bloom, is in charge of this operation. Item TSR is forming yet another division, TSR Games, which will publish Mike Carr's classic Fight in the Skies in a 5th edition, 1975, and that's in its 5th edition already, as well as a super fun fantasy board game in the near future. We know that's going to be Dungeon! Item, due to the demands of running TSR, we have employed Gary Gygax full-time. That's a big deal. Done with the shoe repair, not going back to accounting, and he is now responsible for all orders, billing, and accounting. Item, TSR has not less than 10 titles, rules, and games nearing completion. Well, gosh, that's got to include Boot Hill, Metamorphosis Alpha, some other things like that. M.A.R. Barker's Incomparable Fantasy Campaign game Empire the Petal Throne will be nearing completion. It should be released around mid-July. We'll skip ahead a little bit here, and we will say getting ready for some D&D tournaments at Origins 1. And from what Avalon Hill says, the games will be filled to capacity. But wait until the players find out just how horrible a place they will be dungeoneering in. That's right. Because, TPKs abound in those early days is what they say. A lot of this kind of talk, I think, lent itself to the reputation that it was super deadly and not just something where you had to be more cautious and couldn't just, fall on your face and not expect there to be some bad things happening. The idea that it was super deadly was played up by the guys that were DMing. It was kind of fun to put the fear of Todd into these people as they talked about we went and we got all this treasure. Yeah, but maybe you missed something. Wait, what? Did we miss something? Maybe they didn't, but it's fun to say maybe you did just to get them to go back in and play some more and get, whet their appetites, right? Able to see more of our friends and sell a few more books and games, of course. Try to stop to see us at the cons we do make this year and come to the shop, 330 Center Street in Lake Geneva, if you're in the neighborhood. Now, that's still where Gary lived at this time. They maybe were starting in William Street already, and maybe they just didn't put the right address in. Let's find out, because I don't know that there haven't people stop by Gary's house. After we finally get around to producing Classic Warfare, which has been put off until late summer, we will do Blackmore, DGUTS, reprint with very minor changes, Ships of the Line, campaign rules for sailing, naval orders of battle, DGUTS, that's Don't Give Up the Ship, by the way, naval orders of battle, Age of Sail, and probably a Star Probe edition, and another fantasy-type booklet or two. We are heeding the result of the survey. That's from last issue, and what you are most eager to get will be forthcoming soon. Strategic Route number 4 will bear an advertisement for TSR Hobbies, offering a catalog, so on and so forth. Minifigs, Der Kriegsspielers, the Scrooby lines, stocks of figures from Heritage and McEwen are expected shortly. So right now we are able to fill most fantasy figure wants. Eventually we will add sci-fi and then traditional models to provide really complete service. So yeah, they were 150 figures. Villa of the Star was a lot early on when they're all fantasy, that is to say. And don't forget, they've got some historical stuff too, right? They got medievals that can stand in to for games like this, and depending on what cultures you're stealing from, there's certainly some later ancients and stuff that you might be able to touch up or mash up a little bit and use as high elves or various other things. So there's a lot of room for utilizing figures that are already on the market in multiple situations. So I expect honest, fair review. I'm not going to get too deep into what he says about Mr. Hendrick's review. I think that's pretty renowned on the internet as it is. Gary did not enjoy a review that was in that. Maybe we'll dip into that in its own episode at some point when we're talking more about the Wargamers newsletter from Donald Featherstone. Discuss how they wound up on the outs with one another. I mean, let's face it, Gary was not a small deal in the wargaming circles, certainly in Wisconsin and Lake Geneva, with Gen Con having been started in '68. We're in '75 at this point, so the Gen Con coming up. That's Gen Con 7, right? So, or 75 at Gen Con 8. 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75. Yeah, 75 would have been Gen Con 8. That was my first one, of course. Look at some of the monsters in here, presenting new Dungeons & Dragons monsters for your enjoyment. Now, remember, we're in summer/fall of 75, so all of this stuff is for original D&D. The Yeti, the Shambling Mound, the Ghost, Naga, Windwalker, Leprechaun, the Piercer, the Shrieker, the Lurker above. A lot of things that are fun for, throwing into areas of dungeons and caverns and such where folks maybe shouldn't be, or are just kind of between more interesting places. How do we keep everybody out of the Lizard Man Temple? Well, you have to travel through all these caverns to get there, and there's a lurker above, and there's a lot of shriekers in there to warn the lizard men that you're coming, and all these various things that get in the way between you and those that are dwelling in there, not just wandering around in there looking for food and that sort of thing in the form of adventurers. They talk about the Woodstock gamers, playtesters, in this, part of the Strategist Club. The awards banquet is almost filled. So you see, this has to be July because it's before Gen Con. So I'm going to say there's a repeat likely there will be a repeat at Gen Con 9 in 76. Okay. So either this was written and then published afterwards, too late, or it was written and it was published just before. Probably that makes more sense because cut and paste back then, they'd have just torn it out and put an ad in there if it didn't make any difference. But they wanted to get this information out before Gen Con based off of their survey from the previous one. Monster Reference Table, additional hostile and benign creatures. Wesley D. Ives. He, of course, is pretty famous. He did a lot of things with the APA alarms and excursions. He wrote a lot of articles in here as well. And he also did chivalry and sorcery and quite a few other things way back in the day. I'm not sure that he's still with us, but I've never seen anything to say otherwise, so I assume he is. This, however, is kind of a humorous article, right? Because what do we got? Drolls, Bydras, Hobnoblins, Weregamers, Umpires, Grifferes, Hippie-Griffs, Green Granules. These are all obviously satirical names. So it's creatures that are satirical ways of looking at this and different types of gamers, statting them up. The move, erratic, fast, never, moving a column, dodge, too slow, Grifferes, slow, maybe fast, and so on and so forth. So all of these things, all of these wonderful things, hit dice, yes, no, always, repeatedly, never, hit, no, yes, no, none. You know, this is all quite a bit of humor here, but it's D&D oriented. So, of course, he was able to, as a regular columnist for Alarms and Excursions, and probably some other newsletters of the day. Wesley D. Ives was a known quantity, and getting some work from him to put into this strategic review, certainly well worth it, right? Then we've got some 5mm Napoleonics, Bob and Paul Zare. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. They have some I don't know, that battle reports, Tower Pressure the 3000. No, it's describing how to set up to run a scenario in this battle, resulting from strategic map moves made during the opening phases of the Woodstock Wargamers Peninsular War campaign. A small French army marching on Valencia was defeated by a Spanish army marching on Barcelona. Okay, so it's a battle report. It's describing a campaign game that was run as part of their regular club. Wargaming World. In number 1, we mentioned a Conan line to be released by Miniature Figurines Ltd. Limited, but is not yet available quite. The new range will actually be called Sword and Sorcery, with over 125 figures initially, and they look good. Although they are not officially to be for games based on the Conan series, many of these figures will be ideal for such usage. TSR helped minifigs in laying out which figures would be adaptable to such usage, and so we know of what we speak. Kindly, Steve Carpenter has sent us samples of the figurines currently ready, and the balance should be along in a few days. So yeah, that's great. They've got some more figures there. At the same time, we hope to be able to mention other fantasy figures new from Heritage Models Incorporated, Der Kriegspielers, and McEwen, as well as review these lines and Jack Scrooby 2. Scrooby 2. And magazine mentions are numerous this time. Bushwhacker. Okay, so they go over a whole bunch of different magazines that are out there and what sort of things they cover, whether it's Fight in the Skies or maybe diplomacy or some of the European wargaming rules that are out there, and Revolutionary War and American Civil War figures. And then there's a great article here for Gallery of Gunfighters, Part 1, The Art of Gunfighting. This would be a Boot Hill man-to-man actions in the Wild West, rules for gaming and RPGing and miniature skirmish fighting, if you want to just keep it kind of more tactical. So all of that's in here, and they talk about some of the greats, Bat Masterson and others that were so well known. Some of the iconic figures, I should say, maybe not great. Wild Bill Hickok, and some of their various accoutrements that they might have, certain equipment. A variety of special holsters also evolved. The swivel holster had a slot into which a pin mounted on the gun was placed. No leather surrounded the gun, and all that was needed was to swivel the gun on a pin and fire. So you'd have to learn how to do that well, but that's the idea. Get better, get faster, get not dead. So that's a pretty good article there. And then you've got a unicorn song. And this appears to be, is it a humorous one? Yeah, I won't read it. Someday you'll get a hold of that and you'll want to read through it. There's a bit of a humorous twist at the end. D&D news and listing of game masters. Al McIntyre, Rich Schwall, John Vandegraff, Dave the Fiend Arneson, of course, and John Bopek and Bill Hoyt. Okay, we love those guys too. And then there's a nice listing at the bottom here with several individuals that are also running games. Jim Ward, Deserted Cities of Mars. There's an article he's writing which feeds right into the John Carter of Mars rules that they were coming out with. The Barsoom, which was another thing they ran into some difficulties legally with and had to move off of. But it talks about how to make cities for a campaign, so you can find out, side streets, lesser palaces, what's on them, how big they are, all these various places. So if you ever run a Barsoom and you can get a hold of a copy of this, you can find something to help you do some creation for your campaign setting. And then again, all of those wonderful rules and products that were available. Look at that, Siege of Minas Tirith, Battle of Helm's Deep. They're coming up with TSR Hobbies to come up with more Lord of the Rings rules. And little do they know how close they're getting. The Battle of Fire Armies is still available. War of the Wizards. That's a game that never really took off. I've seen that around. Don't Give Up the Ship has done very well, and Mike Carr still runs that at GaryCon, for instance. I'm not sure if he runs it at Gen Con anymore, but he loves running that great naval game. Here are prices for a lot of the rule booklets. All three of the Dungeons and Dragons ones for $10. Greyhawk is available for $5. All of those others, Chainmail as well, and Tractics for $10. Panzer Warfare, Boot Hill, Classic Warfare coming soon. Sets of dice, 20, 12, 8, 6, and 4-sided for $2.50. Percentile dice, 2 20-sided dice for $2 rather than 10-sided dice would be used. And then talks about a couple, watch for more titles soon from, here's the European distributor for TSR products and the Australian one, so we're moving up in the world. And that's the end of that newsletter. So there you go. That tells us all we want to know. Oh, and we're just in time to be shutting it down anyway. So it's a good look at what's inside that newsletter. I suppose I could have spent another 15 minutes and discussed the the beginnings of a feud between a couple of newsletters over a review of Dungeons and Dragons. But I think that's beyond the scope of this. We really want to give an overview of the newsletter, of the magazine. They're calling it a magazine, without getting too far into the weeds. Got a couple more of these in Volume 1 and then a couple in Volume 2. We'll add these into a playlist for people that want to catch up with all of them at once or share them with people. It's very much appreciated if you share these links to these videos around. It would be greatly appreciated. So, I guess that's all to say thanks very much on this Friday Periodicals show. And from Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, on TSR's Strategic Review, Volume 1, Number 3. Don't forget, shows are recorded on Twitch most Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, then uploaded to YouTube for convenient streaming. Please like, subscribe, follow, all of that fun stuff, and comment on the videos. Let's get a little feedback. I love constructive criticism, of course, and obviously with the new format here, we've taken some to heart from the past. So you can believe that we're always trying to improve the product, as it were. And if you want to help us out even more, I want to say thank you to all who watch and support my efforts. And please back the channel, even at the free level, on Patreon.com. There'll be links in the show notes for the various things from the video, as well as the Patreon and my various other social media outlets. Thanks to everyone who's done that. And remember, the OK Grognard show or network has 3 different shows now. Guideline Sunday, Old School Watch on Wednesday, and Periodicals Friday. keep track of all those and your favorites and share them again whenever you get the chance, and it'd be very much appreciated. I guess that's about all, so bye-bye.